And we're live. Welcome to the front row seat where it's all about you because you're doing it. I have today round two with Bill O'Brien. We are having an Irish invasion here. We are both Irish, but I've been away from the homeland for a long time. Bill's still very close to it. And as y'all saw last time, we had a wonderful conversation and we're here to do it again. And so I'll tell you a little bit. Bill is an aircraft engineer. He is a consciousness explorer with an unending curiosity. He is a son. He is a, what are you? Your brother. You're an uncle.
Brother.
Father. And friend to all. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Bill, back to the show.
Thanks, Cheryl. Great to be back. Great to see you looking so well.
Well, good. Well, how are you doing these days?
I'm great. I've been busy this past week or so. I've been working on house renovation. My grandmother's old house. I'm renovating that, fixing it up. So it takes up quite a chunk of time. So, but I'm loving it. It's very satisfying.
Oh, well, that's good. And well, thank you so much for carving out a little bit of your time to come talk to us over here on the front row, because, you know, we're all growing and evolving and learning together, and any input that we have, you know, from all the different perspectives just helps that, you know, piece of the pie a little bit more, and we get more information, and then we can do the work a little faster and come to the, you know, the inner journey to the self that we're all on. And so I really appreciate you spending this hour with us today.
Oh, it's great. It's my pleasure. It's a thrill for me too.
Well, that's good. You know, last time we had talked about, you know, just, it was kind of like a radical self-care, you know, where, you know, we weren't being, you know, we were being nicer to everybody else than we were to ourselves. And, you know, because as we, you know, work through this learning experience that we're in, it's really easy to get caught up in, well, I'm just bad and I'm just making all these mistakes and goofing up all over the place and not feeling good about ourselves. And the information that you gave everybody about, hey, we need to make this fair. If we're going to love others and be kind to others, well, we need to turn that in on ourselves too, so that we can have more power and more ability to be able to, you know, stand up in our own power and move forward and not beat ourselves up, you know, by making mistakes, because that's what it's all about, right? It's like we experience things, then we make choices, and then we have to see the results of that choice. And sometimes it doesn't do what we think, but in the end, we learn from every single experience that we have.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. That's 100%.
And so as we went around that, at the end of the show, you'd brought up another point that I really wanted to go into today. And the other point that I wanted to go into was we started talking about how we have this, you know, we're starting to take care of ourselves a little better, make ourselves a cup of coffee and be glad that we're doing things for ourselves. And then I, you know, then we went into another point. It's like, yeah. And then it gets really hard when someone gets frustrated and angry at us, and you know, what do we do around that? And you had some concepts that were just really beautiful around this, and I would like for you to, you know, build the concept around these thoughts, and I'm sure that it's going to help everybody so much. Bill, thank you.
Well, I'll do my best.
Okay.
It's anger is, I suppose, basically you're sort of out of control. You know, it's processing power is low, emotion is high. It's a difficult situation to be in, but luckily most of the time it's acute. So it's a short-lived acute experience. Thankfully. Now, upside to it is way better than feeling guilt or shame or not enoughness, because anger is up the scale from that. You're downstream, if you want to use that metaphor. And so you're empowered to a degree, you know. So on that side, I would use that as well to say it's not an entirely negative experience. So, you know, in terms of where you're at, yeah, anger is certainly better than guilt, shame, or depression. Okay. However, and it's on the path towards annoyance. What's the next step? You know, down from anger would be what? Annoyance to a little maybe discomfort to neutral, to zero. So you're it's really not that far from where you want to be, and take that turn to positivity. Triggers. Anger, I've noticed. there's certain, for each and every one of us, they're individual things, and there'll be certain things there's just a hot button for.
Yes.
And that's usually when you're feeling good and got some time on your own. That's usually a good time to maybe have a short think about what are those hot buttons, and
Yeah.
what is it that makes them hot? Why is it that specific thing that just lights up the red mist, and all of this. That's worth going into. Not a huge tour the force in the mind, but just delve into it regularly, but not for too long. As in, what is causing that to trigger so much? And there's a couple, I think, of common factors. And one would be something as wasting, in the sense of wasting time, going over the same, say, argument, scenario, repetitive behavior that has been gone through multiple times. So a big part of the frustration and the fuel to the anger is the frustration at repetition. How
Yes.
many arguments and real angry moments are the same as the one that went before it? Right? For the same reason, for the same trigger, with the same person.
Yes.
So there's the data. There's the hint. It'll be the person, the scenario, the situation, the surroundings, loads and loads of factors, everything down to, how much are you hydrated? Have you eaten properly? All of those are contributing factors. Those are ingredients in the pie of the state you're in any moment. So in terms of anger, what's triggering you? And is it repetitively the same thing? Or is it what appears to be lots of new things all the time? So to be a slightly different approach in going after either one of those. If it's the same repetitive thing, well, that's funny enough, it's easier in a lot of ways because you know your triggers. So it's try to work on, rather than think of, Mary said this and I said that, and it always repeats. Think, what is it about that statement that starts me off?
I noticed. Go ahead.
Mm.
Sorry.
No, please jump in there.
Jump in there. Well, when I started looking into these things within myself, I did notice the pattern that it was the same scenario that was causing this feeling to rise up in me. And so I started asking myself a lot of questions around it. Why does that same thing cause me to feel this way every time? And also, why does the same thing well up in me and it's not welling up in them? But it appears to me that they're doing something to me. And they're doing it, so they need to quit it. And I'm going to tell them how it's wrong and why they need to quit it. But as I worked closer in and, asked a lot of questions, I started seeing that it had nothing to do with them. It had to do with either a belief I had about myself, or it had to do with an experience I had that was scary, that that they were, and so, it just kind of came back to me. It's like, well, oh, I'm doing it again. So as I worked on it, then those triggers started reducing in, frequency and intensity. So that's how I knew, okay, nobody was doing anything. That was mine. And so I just kind of worked from there. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there because, we all go through this, and it's just something I've just been working on myself. So I think that it's a good part to add there. Go ahead, Bill, do it.
Well, Cheryl, you've gone right to the core of it. At the end of the day, everything and anything that's going on is an inside game. It's not an outside game. And I know you're on this. You've been working on this a lifetime, and so coming to a conclusion that you're like, right, I'm drawing from this person that I meet. They're meeting me where I am.
Yes.
So if it's a repetitive thing, you're going to have expectation. before you think those buttons are pressed, you're going to have expectation that, this button's going to be pressed.
Oh no, here it comes.
Yeah. So then
Yeah.
it's primed, it's primed in a way.
Yeah,
But
you
that's
prime it
because of
up.
the
It's like, oh
repetitive
no,
nature.
go ahead.
Yeah. I can see this. Oh, it's the same time of day, or it's the same room, it's the same lighting, it's the same. Pick it, whatever is that same scenario around you. Like, I can feel this building up. Oh, it's going to be another one of those arguments, or another one of those scenarios, or confrontations.
Here we go. We're going to do it
Yeah.
again.
Well, the beauty of that is that's another helper. That's another great
Yeah.
indicator. Is like, well, nobody's even here yet, but I feel the anticipation. So what are you building? What are you creating? Right? You're
Yes.
putting all these visions ahead of yourself and going, I see you walking into this. So emotionally, you're already there. It's going to be very hard for you and whomever else is in this argument or this angry situation to not be in it with that level of repetitive expectation before it even kicks off. It's going to be, that's a big, strong influence on the outcome, the triggers, the cause, and all of that. So to your point, it's an internal game. You got to think, ask the questions again. What are my triggers? And so you find out they're the triggers. Somebody makes the same comment every day and it just triggers. What is it about that comment that makes me feel this way? And what is it about that feeling then that's really, that I get so wrapped around it, that I get so annoyed or hurt or dismayed or uncomfortable with. So that's the sort of path to go down, follow that path down to the source of that trigger. And it'll usually be something that we take something as an insult, or we take it that we're being undervalued or demeaned in some way. And that's not good. That's a sore point. That's an open wound. And when you do analyze it and ask those questions, when you do find even getting close to what it is, it really disarms it.
And we're back. We just had a really funny thing happen. It's just started the spring allergy season, and yesterday I noticed there was a thick layer of pollen on everything, and I'd been fine. But then during this podcast with Bill, I had the biggest sneeze fest, and I was trying to work around the sneeze fest with Bill. And finally, it just got to, okay, Cheryl, this isn't working. We need to stop and change and then move on. So we're back, and let's go again, Bill. Let's finish this podcast.
You're just going to have to add in too. It could have been just temperatures rising, Cheryl.
Oh my. Well, you are a lovely person, so that is going to permeate, everywhere you go. and the ladies on the podcast did notice that.
All right. Well, hello to all the ladies on the podcast.
Yeah, you should say hello to them, because you have gotten a few fans, and they said, please, can he come back again on the front row seat? And I said, well, I'll ask him and see if he will.
Oh, great. Well, that's kind of you to all ask. And because of that, here I am. So I'm hoping that what we talk about today is some use and is also fun and entertaining.
Yes, it's good to have fun and laugh and love, and laughter is two of my favorite things in the whole world. So let's just keep on and going here. So before we were so rudely interrupted, you were talking about how we were, how the reflection of us is working and how we get upset, and then these triggers are going on. So you want to carry on with that, and then I'll jump right in now that I can.
Great to have you back, Cheryl.
Me too.
So yeah, just back to the triggers. Look for your triggers. Find out what do you have. We all have triggers for everything, but weed out those repetitive ones, because there's something there that you're stuck in a belief. It's just like an unconscious reflexive habit, and it's worth getting rid of them, because every time you have a repetitive argument, you're robbing yourself of time, or robbing each other of time that could be spent, how you said a moment ago, laughing and feeling good. So you're in the other side of that.
Mhm.
The one commodity we all have, we start off with a certain amount and it spends over time, and that is time. You can have all the other stuff in the world or none of the stuff in the world, but the time is the same for all of us.
Yes.
So, how are you feeling in all of the moments of time is really where you want to put your focus.
Yes.
That's how you're going to measure. That's a measurement of the quality of life, of your life. One of the many measurements, you can important, whatever's important to you, whether it's, a lot of cars or a lot of friends or a lot of flowers or a lot of animals or, or none of anything, whatever lights you up.
Well, emotions, I think, it kind of tells you how you're doing. Tom talks about, well, every now and then you need to taste the pudding. How are you doing? And when you're, looking in at your emotional world, then that tells you exactly kind of where you're at. And, these triggers, it's not something to, oh no, here comes a trigger. It's, wow, here's an opportunity for me to learn about what's going on in me. And then now I have an opportunity to change it. I have an opportunity to empower myself and take control of this thing and go, what is this thing causing me to feel this way? And I was talking to a good friend of mine, Saul Luckman. He's been on the front row seat a couple of times, and he is really into the Toltec shamanism, which is very similar to Tom Campbell's work, which I found very interesting. But he talked about, we talked about the power of positive feeling. Then we rolled into the power of just understanding how we're feeling. And then we rolled into that consciousness at the fundamental level of it is emotion. And so when you're really tapping into that emotional place and looking at how you feel, why are you feeling that way, it is just a power beyond belief. It's like a superpower. And, in our culture here in America, it's, y'all, we're not even going to pay attention to these emotions, okay? We're going to scoot these over to the side and pretend it's not there, okay? But really, we need to pull those out from under there, pull them out from under the couch cushions and look at them and see what's going on there, because that is a fundamental level that you can evolve and change. And we don't have to be afraid of these emotions because they don't kill us. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They flow through us. It's not ever permanent. I have never had an emotion that came into my being and then stayed there forever or stayed there for a huge amount of time. Now, if I tried to repress it, then it got a little bit weird and the roller coaster got a little shaky. But
sure,
when I just let them flow through me and understanding it, this is just an emotion. It has a beginning, a middle, and end. This is just a learning tool. It's another learning tool here in this simulation where we're all trying to evolve. So emotions are not bad. They're not here to attack us. They're here to teach us. And I really like that point that you made earlier.
Yeah, they're a guidance system, aren't they?
They are.
The emotion comes, 100%. It's a result of what are you thinking? Because what you think is the fuel for an emotion. And an emotion is the power behind the creative thought. If you have a thought with no emotion, it doesn't have a whole lot of traction, doesn't have a whole lot of power in it. But a thought, an idea, coupled with the positive or negative, coupled with emotion, that's a powerful emotive force to create in your life. So you envision your life, or you plan your life, or you see your life working out in a certain way. Well, when you play that through in your mind, where's the emotion at? Because that's going to be your guidance as to, are the thoughts I'm thinking genuinely positive for me, or is there some sort of lack in there? Is it more of I'm afraid I'll have, say, poverty, so I'm forcing myself to think of wealth. But if you strip that down, you say, well, what's the feeling? You say, well, I feel poor. You're adding motive power to a feeling of lack, which gets you more of it. So it's a really useful thing. Know those emotions. And the other great thing with emotion is when you get to a point where you're consciously choosing your thoughts, then by choosing positive thoughts and useful thoughts, things that are good for you, things that are working out, your emotions are going to feel good. Yes. So you're in a good feeling, good thinking, and ultimately living through a good experiential life.
Yes.
It's a step-by-step process, but I mean, the smallest improvement, really, the feelings you get back, the feedback from it, and the payoff is exponential. It's huge. You don't have to make massive leaps in quality of who you are, or quality of consciousness as we discuss it, but make a little improvement, figure out one little thing, and watch how that permeates across all aspects of your life and improves it. It's like a rising tide lifting all boats. One little
Yes.
lesson learned, one fear eliminated, one source of less than, we'll call it less than feeling, found out and shown to be untrue, unfair, bad habit, whatever way it's been recurring in life, then that little improvement, that little win, that is going to have a payoff in all areas of life. And that understanding then also will back update all other learning. It isn't like it stands
Yes.
on its own just now. Everything we've learned before, we can reevaluate, re-update, and reuse with a new perspective. And the result from that shift is massive. The shift measurably might not be all that big or seem all that big, but the result of it as life comes to us and through us is incredible.
Well, it's reality changing, because as you change and shift these things, your reflective mirror is going to start reflecting that back to you instead of what you had going before. And
Oh, yeah.
then you can just see your reality shifting. And as you really get traction in this process, your reality starts shifting in a massive way. And you can just see, the reflection of you change, then your reality changes, and then it starts becoming a positive feedback loop. And then you start really getting traction in this, and your life becomes way more enjoyable. It becomes fun, and you're starting to go the other way on the spiral in a positive direction. And
Yes.
the massive creative force behind the power of positive feeling is huge. And I think this would be a good place to segue into something else we want to talk about. I just finished an event this last weekend, and I'm still recovering from it. It was so much fun. 350 people showed up. We had an extra 50. We don't even know how they got there, but there they all were. And there was just love and excitement flowing through the whole thing. It was a lot of open-minded people who are, really curious about how this consciousness is working and what's going on here. And I just talked to so many people about so many topics. And it was funny because this is the power of positive feeling. And this is where you get your creative power in this realm. And I really saw it in a big way when I was planning this event. It was an event for Archaics. Jason Breshears is an upcoming podcaster, and he has a lot of good insights. And it's got a lot of history in it, but it also has the same fundamental principle that we create our own reality and that we are mortal beings here. And these are our avatars. So it's the same teachings, the same principles. It's just in a different wrapper in a book, So as I was in the podcast one day, and I was in the chat, and I was just laughing around and playing in there. And I noticed that there was quite a few people in there that were from Texas. I said, oh, they're not far away. Well, we could just kind of go to a restaurant, and we could just kind of get together and hang out and share ideas, which is what I love to do. It's my favorite. And talking, that's my favorite too. And so I just wrote in the little chat there, hey, it's all you people from Texas, let's do a little get together, and we can meet at a restaurant and have a dinner and just share ideas. And
super.
And then a few people said, hey, that sounds like fun. So I went over to the Archaics Facebook page, and I said, okay, all the people that I was talking to in the chat, there was, 5 or 10 of y'all. Let's I was serious. Let's set this up. And they were like, oh yeah, it sounds great. And they responded on the Facebook page. And so I started thinking about it, and I was thinking, oh, here we go. Here's the idea. The thought was, oh, let's have a meetup. And I liked that idea. The thought, it sounded good to me. Then I started feeling good about it. And I thought, oh, wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be fun to meet other people who are like-minded, more open-minded, and to talk about things that I don't get to talk about with just anybody, except
Sure.
maybe Bill and a few people on the front row seat. And I said, oh, this would be fun. See, there's that positive feeling, power.
Yep.
And I said, oh, wouldn't that be fun? Oh, and then I just started looking around for where we could meet up at a little restaurant somewhere. And so that was pushing the run button, because you want to push the run button on once you have a thought that you like, and then you put some positive vibration of feeling into it, then you have to take that action toward that thing.
Take a little action.
Take a little action. And that's the 3-step process that is just a powerful manifesting tool here. And so as I started doing that, we had it set up. We were going to go to a restaurant, and we were getting, we were going to do it like in January, the end of January, some point. And then Jason Bashirs had looked at the Facebook page and saw what I was doing. And he just kind of leans over into the mic and he goes, yeah, whatever Cheryl's doing over there. And, I think that I want to go to that. And I just saw that, and I went, and Jason has 100,000 subscribers. He just told,
oh, wow.
He just told that many people that he was coming to this thing that I was playing around with. And then the first thought that came to my mind is, oh no, it was like the Jaws movie. I see this big shark coming up. I said, we're gonna have to have a bigger venue. This restaurant's not gonna work, And so
we're gonna need a bigger boat.
Gonna need a bigger boat. And that's how the whole Archaics meetup started. And by the time I changed the date to April 1st, April Fool's Day. A lot of fools in paradise wandering around meeting each other.
I think that's one of the secrets of paradise.
Yeah, it is. It is. And so as I started working on it, and I found a bigger venue, and then for the next 3 months, that's all I did was plan and organize. I set up a meetup account so that people could come and, get their tickets to the event. And that's all I've been doing. Well, not all I've been doing. I went to Beamish Hall and did that too. At the same time, I was helping, organize this event. By the time it was done and said, it turned into this huge thing where all these people got to come together and meet each other that had been talking in the chat for the last 2-3 years. They all knew each other and how they, thought, and they had favorites, and everybody kind of already had friends in there. And so by the time the event got there, and Jason and Matt, they had worked on, getting things together that they could, give the people. And it was just turned into this massive co-creative endeavor. And by the time it was said and done, all fun was had by all. And it turned into this huge love fest, which I thought was really, really fun. And, that's just the power of using your creative abilities, because you don't know where that one little thing is going to go, because once you start creating and moving in that direction, and then other people can join in,
sure,
they can co-create together with you. And so when we can get rid of some of this inner stuff we have going on and bring in more positive vibrations, then it'll bring other components of it together, and then you end up in this huge co-creating cooperative, instead of something where everybody is separate and in competition. And that's what I saw through this whole thing. And it was just a beautiful thing. And I didn't do it all by myself. I had a lot of help, but that's where it started. And is where it started, from that little thought I had about meeting some people at a restaurant. And I just used the principles of power, and positive feeling. And that's how it got there. So I just wanted to give that example, because I think it's a good one to look at, to see that we all have this creative ability within us. Every single one of us does. And I didn't do anything special. I just learned. I learned about myself. And then I learned about what kind of power we have here, because we are powerful creators. And And when we empower ourselves to step into that power as a creator, you just cannot imagine what life can turn into. It can just bring you all kinds of things that you never even knew could exist.
Absolutely. It becomes a big adventure.
Yeah, it does. It does. And so,
That's great. The way you put that together, Cheryl, is really phenomenal. And I'll just speak to where you said about, when you hit that run button, you sent out the email, or what was it? Sorry,
the run button was when I went over to Facebook and I said,
the
we are going
Facebook.
to go
Yes,
meet. Yeah.
yeah, that's it. But I go back a step or two even from that in terms of you taking action. In that, I'll use it as an example to speak to why getting rid of self-doubt is so important. And it's that you got the idea to put a post and you didn't doubt it. You didn't talk yourself out. There was no negative kind of, well, who's going to come there and want to eat with me? Or, will someone think I'm a bit loopy or a bit woo woo or a bit, soft in the head? The usual chatter, the old repetitive chatter. Well, you see, in the absence of that, or even whether it's there or not, the fact that you've built up that trust in yourself, that knowing where that feeling is. When a good idea comes, it hits a little different.
It does.
And you're trusting it, and you're like, okay, I trust this. I like the feeling of it. Hey, you know what? And the other thing about the courage with it that comes with it, hey, you know what? If nobody responds, so what?
No foul
Right?
here.
Because no, but a common dialogue would be something like, oh, if nobody responds, I'll look silly. I look unpopular. I look like nobody cares about my ideas. Nobody wants to do that anyway. Yeah, you're really weird and the chat room doesn't have traction. Or the conversation is just empty words, blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah,
that wasn't the case. It was like, this is, I feel good in this idea.
yeah.
And then write the email or write the Facebook. I feel good with this post. That felt good. Let's see what happens. Roll the dice. Why not? And who cares? At the end of the day, I feel good doing it. I feel good offering it. It's not up to me whether anyone takes up the offer. The fact is that I'm playing my part, following what it is for me is important, or that feels good to me. And people on that vibe, people who are out there, maybe thinking the same thing, and of course they are. Because again, like you say, you draw out of people where you're at. And the other is that you'll end up always that gravitational pull to people who are on a similar, will have some big aspect of their lives that where you share that common interest. So that same wavelength, that same vibe, call it any of those things. And what's better than that?
What's better than that? And it was, here's what's coming to my mind now is when we have those ideas that feel good to us, when it pops, you can feel that vibration of, oh, that kind of felt good, and when you feel that, it means something. It really does. It's almost like it's almost like a door opening into some other realm you haven't, experienced, or something new that you're bringing into your life, because it is a reflection of us. And I think that where I've seen myself get caught up in it is in making our choices, and if we make our choices based out of, oh no, what will happen if, well, what if this thing turns into a complete disaster? I'm going to look like a fool, and it's going to be embarrassing. And so that's just the whole thing is having the courage to not care what other people think about what you're doing, because all in all, it's really what people think about you is really none of our business. That's really their business, really, if you think about it. But I think,
oh no, it really is their business. It has nothing to do with you.
Nothing.
Nothing. That's on them.
That's on them. Yes, and I think where where I got hung up in that is when I was young and growing up, the way the children were dealt with here is that if we made a choice that didn't work out so well, we were punished for it instead of allowing us just to have the circumstances of the bad choice we made. Yeah. I got up for school. I didn't put my shoes on, and So, well, I guess you're going to school without shoes today, you know?
Yep.
Not that extreme, but you know what I mean. But just allowing children to have the consequences of the bad choices instead of being punished for it. And I
Hmm.
think that out of that punishment for choices, I got caught up in, I didn't want to make any choices because I was afraid that it was going to turn out bad. Because in the back of my mind, I'm going to be punished if this doesn't work out
Sure.
okay. But see, this is the way life is. This is a learning place where we need to make choices that don't turn out so well, so that in the end, we can learn from it. We learn from that choice that didn't work out. Then we go on, then we can make a better choice on down the road. And so
Hmm.
I just got better at telling myself I am not going to be punished anymore for my choices. I'm going to be
Hmm.
punished in some ways if I make really bad choices, but it's going to be something that I learn from. So is it
Hmm.
really a punishment, or is it something that's going to enhance my life for the rest of my life? So I think that, just looking around that area of just basic, how do you feel about making choices? How do you feel about, is it scary? Is making choices, is that something you just kind of steer away from? Do you just sit back and not make choices? Well, even if you're not making a choice, you're still making a choice. And
Hmm.
if you're not making the choice, that's worse than making a choice that turns out a little wonky, you know,
Hmm.
because you
Yeah,
are shutting yourself down to your learning and growth, you know?
I'd agree. Although I'm going to hit you with a little bit of philosophy now on what you've said as well, and the benefit of it.
Hit me,
When
Bill. Come on, bring it.
I would say this to you, in the youth, I mean, look, go back 20, 30, 40 years, nobody liked the kids making mistakes. And usually the corrector was a good old slap in the ear, right?
Yeah.
That'll realign your chakras like that. So you'll be fine. But here's the side to it. If you hadn't gone through that, right? And now there's no mistake in doubting ourselves and being afraid coming through life and having low self opinion is not pleasant. But if you didn't do that or have that experience, you wouldn't have worked so hard to get out of it. And you wouldn't be here being able to help. Maybe you would not be here doing this today, helping others figure out what you figured out and vice versa. So I will admit, I've become very, very, very slow to judge or criticize anything from anyone at any time, anywhere, because you don't know.
you
So
know,
without that, Cheryl, it's likely we wouldn't be here doing this. And who knows? And please God, it'll happen that somebody listening that this is going to be a key that helps them find something that unlocks, improves life a little bit, and hopefully more than one. And like, isn't that worth it? Now,
it is
standing
worth it.
here now, looking back, you think it's worth it 1,000 times. In the moment of procrastination or in fear or in disharmony or unhappiness, maybe in those moments you think, no, it ain't worth it. Fair enough. But it's after an event looking back, and call it a rose tinted glasses or not. Life teaches, and when you have pulled yourself out of it, it's such a good feeling. It's a hero's journey as well, Cheryl,
It
right?
is.
You know, you're born into something without any challenge. You're born into the perfect world. You know, we often need conversations. Sure, everybody said at some point, "Oh, I wish the world was more fair. I wish it was perfect." Right? Let me tell you the truth. See if you were born into something perfect, or you got a perfect world thrust upon you all of a sudden. In about 30 minutes, you'd take a sledge to it and wreck it just to have something happen, to have some kind of action, right? What is perfection? It means there's nothing left to strive for, nothing left to grow to. Maybe. I don't know. I like the idea. Give me joy, give me happiness, and there's no there's no upper limit to that, right? You know that it's love. I use the example of children with love. Why? How do I know? How do you know the universe is always expanding? How do you know it's expanding towards love? Empirical evidence. So something that I know in my heart that's absolutely true. People can explain it. Words don't necessarily penetrate it, but you have your own experience. And I would say I'll use the love of children. So I have two daughters. If you ask me today, could you love them any more than you do? I can say hand on heart, for certain, no. It's maxed out. There's no possible way I could love them more than I do. And there's no way there could be more than that. Right? That's a certainty right here now. Tomorrow, looking back, I know I love them more tomorrow than I do today, even though today I know it's impossible. That's expansion. There's no upper limit. It just gets better. With the focus on it getting better, aligned with the emotion of getting better. Get the ideas first, get the words, fine tune the words first, because words lead. We build our world and we shape our environment and we shape our thinking using our words. So a good habit, work on your words. Get not only precise in.
Oh, we lost Bill. There he
Sorry,
is.
pardon me, Cheryl. Sorry about that.
You're good.
Interruption again. There was precision of words. Be precise with speech as much as possible and build it in as a new habit. Build it in as something that you're striving for, like building any skill. First day's fishing is not as good as day 100 when you're fishing or driving or anything else. So precision in words, know what they mean and be ready to ask someone else if you find yourself on a disagreement, what their definition of the words you're using and what your definition is, and are they aligned? And if they are, work out the detail. And if they're not, line them up. Find out what it is, what words you're using to mean the same as they mean. You will see transformations, internal, external. So those are useful. With the precision in words comes precision in thinking. As you build those habits, precision in thinking makes it much, much easier to start to have a vision for your future. And it starts also to help re-energize our imagination. This is something very interesting I've noticed. As a youngster, a very vivid memories have been having a really vivid imagination. I mean, I would be happier in my imagination up mid-teens, late teens, than as happy there as I am in the physical world, moving about and having fun. And it's thrilling and really delve into it, and it's a full-on thing. But I started to let it go. For some reason, I got it into my head that less imagination, more hard 2 and 2 is 4, the Newtonian physics facts, work with logic, all this type of thing.
Right.
And so I made that a study, and I put myself in that way of being for quite a long time. And now as I rebuild the power of imagination and the access to it and the familiarity with it.
Yeah.
Right? Build back up. I realized that, wow, we think we have imagination. But until you stop and you deliberately try to go, okay, let's do a little example. So I say, if you follow somebody, it's easier than if you prime it yourself. But say, okay, right now, imagine a tall, tall building of like 200 floors, shining yellow and bright, with crystal windows and bells ringing on it. Very easy, follow that. Everyone's got the 200-story building, and it can be this size in your mind, or it can be massive. Now, if you're to prime that for yourself with nothing else going on, say, okay, create a vision for tomorrow, a vision for today, later today, a vision for the next 5 years of my life. You might try it. Without a lot of practice, it's not as clear, as easy as you think. So it's again worth doing. Take 5 minutes a day and sit down and go, okay, I'm going to just imagine into it and make notes as well. That's useful. Say, I would like to have, the nice garden. I'd like a dog. I'd like, a nicer, we'll use a common one. I'd like a whole lot more money for the work that I do, right? And but before I want to get the money, I'm going to add loads of value to the people I work with. So, hey, it's going to be an easy sell. So work on that. Work on the imagination, precision of words, the definition of them, and then use them to build the images, the life that it is that you want. Do it slowly, do it gently, so that you don't get the pushback. The pushback is the doubt of what it is. You say, oh, I really want that lovely big house that we've always dreamed of down by the trees, right? But if in you, when you say it and you think it, if you get that sudden icky feeling, right? That doubt. Well, that's just null pointed your tug of war. You've just zeroed it. So I say I want it, but I doubt I want it. So make it easy stuff to imagine. Make it stuff that you like, whether it happens or doesn't happen, you don't care. But it'd be nice if it did. So imagine that in, so you don't have the counterpoint pulling away from it.
Right.
And lose yourself in it, feel good about it, just enjoy
Yeah.
it. You'll start to fuel, that'll be fuel for positive emotions. Positive
Yes.
emotions are power behind the creative thought that you're using. So it's a loop that starts to feed itself, and with a
Yes.
little bit of attention, it's almost like perpetual motion because it has
Yes.
momentum. Momentum will start to pick up, and it'll start to improve. All you need is a little guidance. It's like you push a hoop or a tire or something. The hard bit is to get it go, get its balance, and push it initially. But to
Right.
keep it flipping forward, it's real easy. Kids do it with hoops and a stake, or you push it, a wheel, and that's all you're doing with a positive thought, positive momentum in your life.
Yes.
Get that, build a habit of to get it going. So think, I will deliberately choose thoughts that feel good to me. Nothing big or radical, just simple stuff. Build that momentum, and after a
Build the
while, that
momentum.
momentum, yeah, that momentum is very stabilizing. It has that gyroscopic effect where something will bump into it and it'll just right itself,
Exactly.
right?
And that,
And so that's useful.
yeah, and thinking about the momentum of how things are going in your life, that's a huge key element, because if you've got something spinning really fast and going down the road, well, you're not going to be able to say, okay, I'm going to go this way now. And I
Mm,
think life is all about momentum of vibration and energy and where it's flowing. And I think that's what happened with the Archaics event. It didn't have any momentum at first, and it had just a little pop in my head. If I would have thought, oh, I'm gonna plan this huge event and see if Jason wants to go, and do all this stuff, it would have had so much doubt in it that it would have just been working against itself, and nothing would have happened. Nothing would have
there you
moved
go.
forward.
Perfect example. So true.
It's so true. So you want to just start with those little ones and start with the momentum on those, and then just every now and then, it's almost like you're spinning one of those wheels that those Buddhist monks use. You're just walking
Yes.
up. You walk up to it and just give it a little spin. Oh, that's going to be fun. I'm going to meet some people that are a lot like me, and then that thought feels good. Spin it again, and that's all it is. And then
Mhm.
and you're right. Once the momentum gets going, at one point in the whole event, it was like, okay, I've spun this thing so much, now I've got a tiger by the tail.
Absolutely. But how stable was it? Look what you created.
Because it
And
was
you
going.
did.
It was just going. There
Oh,
was
yeah.
nobody was stopping it either. It was doing it. And I have to
Sounds like
say
a
right
lot of
quick,
fun.
I got to say real quick, Bill, just a few conversations back, I loved it though. You just flipped the script on me, and I loved how you did that. Of, when I was thinking about how I would get in trouble for making choices that people didn't like around me. But you're absolutely right. See, I like looking at things when I see them. And I love it that you do this to me. I love it. Keep doing it to me, Bill.
Well, I can only do it to you because I've had to do it to me first. You know what I mean? As you go,
And Bill
because
says
there's a,
this, Cheryl,
yeah.
will, if you hadn't had that experience, Cheryl, then you wouldn't be where you are now. You wouldn't have worked so hard to understand
That's
what was
right.
happening in your mind. And that's absolutely true. I would not have sit there and worked on it and worked on it and worked until I figured out where some of those glitches were. And my glitches were around making choices. And so that's what I've been working on here lately, Bill, is coming to the place of really looking at my challenges. And I've been doing this for a few months now. Saul Lutman has been working on this one too, and putting information in there about it, of really
Mhm.
accepting and honoring the challenges that I've gotten in this life, because without them, I would not be where I'm at now in a happy life that I've
Oh my
created
God,
within
yes.
myself. I would not be where I'm at. So when you try to, embrace these challenges, there is pain in those challenges. And so I was like,
Mhm.
no, I don't want to have that pain. And I would never do that to myself, but I think we do.
That's
And
right.
coming to love the challenges. That's what I'm working towards. Okay, I'm going to love that challenge, even though it's bittersweet and it had that
Mm.
sting of that pain in it. I'm going to learn to love all of the processes of growth and learning in my life, and not just the fun, happy ones, you know. And I think that this happened the other night in a chat. Actually, it was just a couple of nights ago where we were all in there, and Jason kind of calls, you know, the challenges we face here. He calls it the AIX programming, right? Because we are in a programmed narrative writing computer type thing, whatever it is. We can't see
Right.
it, feel it, but it's there. And he calls it AIX, and it's the challenges, you know, that are in it. And so it was so funny. We were in there, and I said, "Thank you, AIX, for bringing me this challenge so I could evolve and grow." And then all of us had all smiley face emojis, just laughing because they were like, "Thank you, AIX. Thank you for your service. Thank you for helping me. I promise I'm going to learn to love you too."
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good one,
That
Bill.
is good.
So thank
It's a
you for
great
bringing
feeling.
that up.
It's a great feeling. I would say that's the truth of it, isn't it? That's how you know things are working out. And there's another aspect to it, that another ingredient why it feels so good to reflect on it in a way that is positive. Say, well, at the time that didn't feel good, but looking back, glad it happened. I'm here now. Another reason why that feels so good is you've gone from being a victim of circumstance to owning your life. And by God, there's nothing more powerful than that.
There
That's
is nothing
everything.
that feels better than empowerment here. We thrive in that, and we get so ugly on the inside when we feel disempowered. And it is.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's terrible. We become passive aggressive. We start doing things to other people. We want other people to disempower themselves because we feel so disempowered. It's like,
Yeah, come down here low
come down
beside me,
here
so I
where
don't feel
I'm
so
at,
bad.
so I can
Yeah.
feel okay about where I'm at. You
Sure.
disempower yourself because you just stop it, you know. And
Sure.
when the most beautiful feeling of all is when we empower ourselves, and we empower ourselves to step into our full capacity and potential as creative reality builders that we can do. We can write our own narratives. We have this huge creative abilities, and we're very powerful creators. So when we look at ourselves like someone who does not have that power, it is a lie. See, and that lie going in, it does not hit right. It doesn't hit well. It just doesn't. And it feels very ugly. So
Yeah, it feels off, doesn't it?
it just feels off. So let's all empower each other and get out there and just live life to its fullest, and revel in the power that we find in ourselves, and then use that power to bring good positive things into the world.
Yep. That's the end goal. That's what you're aiming for, to feel comfortable in that, and also to be able to operate it optimally. Because if you get your head around it before maybe you're at a point where all your choices will be good for you, you can get empowered and do yourself loads of harm. So, well, not loads of harm, but you know, it can go a little off. But step by step, straighten out the thinking, get clear on what you want, and enjoy it.
And enjoy
And
it.
don't choose victimhood.
No.
Because it's a choice. To be offended is a choice. To be a victim of something, doesn't matter what it is. Why that always feels off and why it brings such poor results is because it's absolutely 180 degrees to what's true.
Yes.
We have this world we're in, this beautiful, magnificent AI virtual reality, call it what you want, dream world. I don't mind the metaphor. It's phenomenal. It's worth learning how to operate in it. It's worth figuring out what are the rules, how does it work? What's the way to optimally get through it, to work within it, to play this game, we'll say. Let's use those terms. What's the optimal way to play this game? Well, the optimal way to play any game is to learn what the rules are. Because a game can only exist if you have certain parameters and rules around it, so that
Yes.
you know what the edges are, where the edges are, and how to behave within it. Otherwise, you've nothing. You've just chaos. That's the Tom Campbell would call it high entropy. You've loads of bits of data, but none of them coherent.
Right.
So rules in this world are, how does it work? You know, the physical aspect with gravity, speed of light, speed of sound, all of these things. The physics of the physics
He'll be back. There
Sorry,
he is.
jumped again. My
It's okay.
apologies. Working on it. That broke my train of thought just momentarily because I had to deal with it. What was I saying?
You were saying the physics of it, and when you start to,
Oh,
there you go.
yeah. Sorry. Yeah. The building of the reality.
Yeah.
Do it nice and slow. Get a handle on what you're thinking and build it up from there. But don't be a victim. Whatever's going on in life, and I don't want that. That'll sound trite. It'll sound like a throwaway comment because there are certain challenges out there. There's certain lives that are tough as a really worst nightmare you could dream.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to make little of that or skim across it with some trite remark. But
Empower
just like
yourself. Just
like we said earlier, use it. Use the challenge. Use it. There's something there. There's something in it. There's some little crack of light that you can look
Yeah.
at and appreciate and grab onto and go from there. And know that ultimately you can live your life the way you want it once you get a handle on understanding some of the basic rules of it. And the most important is where you put your thoughts is where you direct your life.
Yes.
So be a good director of your life.
Yes.
Start it off, get in the habit, choose what do I want to think about? Because it's real easy when you ask that question. You ask, what do you not want? Well, that'd be everything that exists except the one thing that I do want.
Yes.
Well, that's a lot of data. And that's a lot of stuff to not have, to line up to be like, not this, not this. Okay. You're leaving yourself open to some really random chaosy stuff.
Yes.
But you start to get a handle on like, what do you want? I know I want this. I want this. I want this. I want this. Those
Yes.
are just 4 things that you have to bring out of a system that's designed to be created by yourself.
Yes.
Can you now? That should make it clear.
Yes.
Know what you want, slowly build it up. Choose what you want, feel good about what you want, live through it. And see in life, in every day, when something works out or some little thing works out, notice it and appreciate it and think, yes, that's on the path, that's working out. And it'll, like your story with the Archaics event, one little good idea, one little good feeling led to a good thought. The good thought led to a good action. The good action led to attracting all the other people in that locale who were thinking the same thing, who were like, oh, I wish there was a meetup.
Yeah.
It would be lovely. Or someone puts out, hey, we can have a meetup. Like, my God, what a great idea. I didn't think of it, but that's what I was searching for. So all the questions out there are going, hey, Cheryl, and you just pick up on it. You're like, they attract from you the spark of idea. You attract from them the response or whatever they're going to bring to the meetup.
Yes. It's exactly how it went. And I had 2 things, when you were talking about, and it was a wonderful thing. I learned so much about that whole creative process and, just what we are all capable of doing here, and, I've done it in other areas of my life too. And I have some creations that are ongoing and they're wonderful and they've got some momentum going on those too. So it's not just one thing that you can create on. You can create a lot of things. You can create the life you want. And so the 2 things I have is, when we talk about not getting into the victim mode, we both understand that there are some really big, huge challenges that some people face here. And it's just, it can be the pits of despair and it's so painful. We're not minimizing that for anyone. We have all been there. I've been there. I'm sure Bill's been there. But what we're saying, what happens when you're in a victim role and this has happened to me and now I am just here. What that does is you are unable to move anywhere in the victim mode. It takes away your ability to create your way out of there. And that's why
correct.
The victim modality is so bad for us, is because we have nowhere to go. And then you identify as a victim. Well, then now you're a victim. You have just disempowered yourself. That's why. But if you come out of the victim role, you can get that little ray of light and go, okay, I know that I had a lot of challenges there and that was just not fun. But you know what? I'm going to think these thoughts And then you can start working your way out of there. Then as time goes on, those thoughts don't even come up anymore because you've moved past it and you've healed and grown from it. That's why,
Mhm.
the victim mentality, that's what we're talking about. We know that there
Mhm.
are true victims here.
Mhm.
Things happen to people, but we're talking
Sure.
about the victim mentality. Well, I'm a victim here. That disempowers you. That's why we got to get away from that one. The other
Oh,
thing
it's
that I
poison.
had, yeah, and then the other thing that I had was in the Toltec shamanism traditions. We were talking about power and how once you start coming into your power, that can get a little wonky too, because if you have a lot of ego around that, then you pour a bunch of power on it, then it's gonna
Mhm.
your cart's gonna get wonky again, because then you're creating out of selfish needs instead of creating for other, and out of love. And so
Mhm.
in the shamanistic tradition, there's 4 stages that you go through, and the first one is where you start is fear. Then you move through that, and then you build courage, and you start moving out of the fear phase. Then you go into clarity, where you go and you get information. What's going on in this reality? What are we doing here? And then you start looking around and looking for information. Like I sought, spiritual information for since I was 30 years old. I was looking for the clarity that I was, wanting to understand about this world and my place in it. Then once you get enough clarity around what you're doing, then you start moving into the power, because as you move through these phases, you become empowered instead of disempowered. And
Mhm.
as you come into that power, if you haven't worked through enough of that fear stuff, and, because fear is all about you and love is about others. So when you come into too much power and then you're not thinking about others, it becomes very selfish and hurtful to others. That's not what we want either. So, you work a little bit more on the fear. And then as you grow and you become empowered, then, instead of staying in that power, and you don't want to stay there, you want to use that power in a positive force in this world. And as we
Mhm.
grow, people that have, done a lot of the inner work, they don't want to use the power to hurt other people. And most people that do have power don't want to hurt others. They want to
Mhm.
share that with others and help others with this power. And
Mhm.
and then as you can move one more step to freedom, because then you have the freedom to just be the creative, artistic, consciousness that you are. And these 4 stages, I believe, is how we go and evolve our consciousness here, and which is what we're all striving to do, including
Mhm.
Bill. He's
Oh
done
yeah.
a lot of work in this area, and his life
Oh,
is wonderful, by the way. He's doing a lot of things he loves doing, and I think that all the concepts we talked about today are going to be empowering and uplifting. And so what do you think that we end it here and we can start, well, maybe we can do round 3, Bill. What do you think?
absolutely. Like Cheryl, like I said to you, anytime. I'd be happy to. If there's something you think I can help with, I'm in.
Well, don't do that. I'll have you on here every other day.
Well, we limit it maybe to once a week or something at the start, then build it up.
Well, you're so wonderful to talk to, Bill, and
That's very
and
kind,
you're
Cheryl.
not hard on the eyes either. So you can come.
Well, I can just give those compliments straight back to you, Cheryl. I appreciate that. And also, you're a wonderful talker. You've got a lot of insight. I'd say one of the many skills you have, and this podcast is obviously the result of it. You're a good communicator. You're very natural. You're happy to go into yourself and speak. Just speak as it comes through. You speak from the heart and be open about what you're learning, what you're going through. That's very, very useful because we are all people and we're all going through. It's never the same, but there'll be something. There's always something in somebody's story that there's something there that can be useful. Oftentimes it'll be a piece of good advice. And we're like, oh, we'll use that. Sometimes it can be a choice someone made. You're like, wow, I'm going to use that as a tool to go from that advice rather than to that. It's not always something that you want to go to. People's stories can be something like, wow, that's a story. I want to go from that. Either way, it's helping get clarity. There's more and more clarity. And you said something there near the end about it was so important about when you believe you're a victim, you're a victim. Again, speaks to the definition and the precision of your words. If you're feeling bad, put a label on it,
Yeah.
right? Say, well, what am I feeling now? Am I downtrodden? Am I a victim? Am I unlucky? Is the world again? So when you do that, if you do that and you're good at it, you can figure out what label you put on. Well, think, okay, what's one step up from that? So if you're a victim, you're like, well, okay, I'm not a victim. Just say some unlucky circumstance befell me and I wasn't ready. Right? So you're like, I'm not ready and this is feeling overwhelming. Well,
Yes.
what could I do that would make this a little less unbearable? What actions can I actually take? Not would I like to and can't get, hypothetical. What actual solid in this experience, I mean, in my life, there is some choice you can make that will make your life a little better.
Yes.
Whatever it is, figure it out, take it.
And do it.
And when you're there, do the next one. Figure out, look, and use those, the precision of your vision, the precision of your definitions. Say, right, where am I? Whether I'm a victim or whether I'm winning, whatever I am. Okay, I'm here. From here, where do I want to go?
Yes.
You always want to aim up, regardless of where you are. Aiming up is the key. It's not pointing out, oh, you're a victim or you're winning. It's not that. It's where am I and what way now am I going to orientate myself? Am I going to aim up? Am I going to aim at nothing, or am I going to just, let momentum take me further down? Because there's no upper limit to love and joy. There's no lower limit to the sort of hell you can make for yourself.
there's no end on either end. There really isn't. And I have to tell you, Bill, flattery will get you everywhere.
Yes, flattery is a wonderful lubricant for all things in life.
So I just thank you so much for coming today, Bill. And until we do it again next time, peace and love, much love and laughter into your world. And I give it freely to you as you give it freely to others.
Likewise, Cheryl, thank you again for the opportunity. I hope this is helpful to everybody. And keep up the good work. You're doing great.
Wow. Thank you so much, Bill. We'll see you again on round 3.